What is going on, everybody? It is your favorite time of the day. I love the opportunity to bring y'all the greatest show on the planet. Now, today is a day that I love that we have going on. I mean, I can honestly come and tell you that we actually have a great guest lined up for us today. Um, she has an awesome story that I can't wait for you guys to get in contact with and get to see because it is definitely a awesome opportunity for you guys to hear. I know for me, when I got the opportunity to learn a little bit about her story, I was so amazed. I was so loving of knowing. But once again, you are tuning into No Test Without a Testimony. I'm your host, T. Wright, and you can always tune into great podcasts. Always, you can always tell your family and friends to subscribe and follow us right here on the CI Media Productions page. We are so grateful and so thankful to you because without you, this show does not exist. All right. So we're going to speak no further ado. I'm going to bring our great guest today because without this person, I promise you, we do know that the month of September, there's a lot of things going on. One of them is Suicide Month for sure. I want you to put this, I'm putting this disclaimer out there. If you are someone who has been going through, I want y'all to do one thing for me. First and foremost, do not give up. It is always an opportunity for you to go forward. And that is not the answer. I want you to be able to give an opportunity to let someone help you in the best way possible. And if you have to do so, I want you to make sure that you always, you email at cmmediastudios@gmail.com. You can always reach out to me and I will definitely give you the information that you need. But most importantly, I will make sure that you get all the information that you have to be the best person you possibly can be day in and day out. Now, once again, we're going to make sure that the best person we're bringing to the show, our guest for this evening, Miss Christina.
Hello. Thanks for having me on
Hey,
today.
how's it going? So
Very good.
how's your day been going so far? I think I think
Except
it.
of last night we lost power. Power lost again, had it, lost it. Was on a podcast, lost internet, had a Spanish class, lost internet, and I'm back. So I promise the rest of this
Oh
podcast
man,
won't be
so
as hectic.
one. Well, we gonna definitely keep in prayer that we're gonna continue to have a beautiful connection, because you have a very grateful story that I think a lot of our listeners, male or female, will be able to get into to understand. To make sure that they get all the opportunity and help that they are desired. So one of the biggest things, this is no test without testimony. So no matter what we go through, there are certain tests that we go through in our life that give us the moments that is created for us. I believe that we create things within purpose because we create things for a purpose. I wish I could copyright that, but I didn't create that. But but it sounds good though, right? Um,
Yeah.
but first and foremost, let the beautiful listeners that we do have and the viewers that actually watch the show, um, you know, give them a little small background about who you are first before we actually get into your actual story.
All right. So, who I am, I'm Christina Volkovich. I am a life coach and confidence coach because that kind of all goes together. So, that stems from my background, things that I've overcome, just wanting to help people. And so that's where I'm at. I have my own business called Confidence Coach Christina, and I am here to help people. My full I help statement is I help people, I help people learn how to prioritize themselves, transform old wounds into wisdom, and rebuild confidence to build a life or create a life that they truly love. So that's my goal, to be able to have people living the lives that they are happy and passionate about, because I think life gets so much better with passion. And I know that my life has definitely got better when I started living it with passion. So that's what I want to help people do, because I realize that so many people have dreams and not a lot of people go after them. So I want to help make that happen.
Now, how did you make a decision to get into developing a business out of this? Because let's be honest, we hear people all the time say, "Well, I'm a life coach." I come from a church background at times as well, and I hear people say, "Well, I'm gonna go get me I'm just gonna pray my stuff away," which there's nothing wrong with that. I want people to keep praying. Don't let nobody tell you to not pray about your stuff, but they don't think about that they might need therapy. They don't think about that they need any of those type of things. So how did you get started into making sure that was something that you wanted to do?
So this aspect of my life, this part of my life of me becoming a coach, is something that was a long time after all the things that I went through. So if I can start there with what I went through, I would be happy to do that. If not, I'll take your cues.
No, most definitely. I
All
want you
right.
to really, because well, there's two things, because we are going to go into October soon. October is domestic violence month, and so I want people to understand that going through that, you can see the other side.
Yes.
And it is literally not your fault. There's nothing that you went through. You're not the person that made this individual be because the way they were. But please share that portion of your story so that way people will understand how did you get to where you are today.
All right. So I'm going to start with, again, I'm Christina. I am a domestic violence survivor. And I've lived through a lot of things. I've lived through things that I thought I would never have had to have lived through, in terms of, I can tell you a little bit about what he did. If you don't want to know, that's fine too. If it's trigger warnings, let me know. Um, but yeah, I've lived through things where I've had to file a restraining order against my ex. He did get violent. He cheated on me. When he cheated, he told me eventually, 6 months after the fact. And then he tried to forcibly keep me there. And I was like, I know myself. I know that I am never going to be able to trust you, because my brain is always going to constantly think about all the things that you've done to me, all the things that, like, for the person that you cheated on me with, all the things. But yeah, so I've had, like, verbal abuse, uh, well, physical abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse, all of it. I had it. I was married 6.5 years. It took me a long time to get out of that. It took me a long time to get through things. And I think my whole divorce process even took a year and a half, because he didn't want to get divorced. And I was like, no. And I remember I had this one day when he had my back up against the wall. He had pushed me, had me against a wall, like holding me there. And I had bruises on my back and everything. But I remember thinking, like, they always say that nobody thinks it's going to end the way it does. Like, nobody thinks the abuse is going to end in death. And I'm not saying mine would have. I don't know. I'm happy to not know that. But, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, is my life really not more important than this? Like, I'm here putting up with this because I'm so worried about what everyone else thinks about it, and like what they're going to think when they find out. But at the end of the day, it's my life. It's me that's suffering through this, and it doesn't matter. And it was hard to get out of. I didn't know how to get out of it. Thankfully, I had some really good neighbors at the time, and they kind of knew what was going on. As much as we think that people don't know, they do. And so they kind of knew what was going on. They had asked me some questions. I told them one day. And basically, the straw that had really broken the camel's back was, I was at a party with my ex and the neighbors, and a woman that I'd never met before was like, so is it true? I'm like, is what true? She's like, is it true that he's been beating the shit out of you? Sorry that I cursed. And I was just like, who are you? And like, how do you know this? Like, I haven't been talking to anybody about it. Like, my one neighbor knew, and I knew she wouldn't have said anything, but it was like a friend of a friend. So people slowly know. And that night was like a trigger for my ex. And he wound up being like, no, that's not okay. You need to listen to me. These people are bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, listen, I need to go to sleep. I have to work tomorrow. he didn't have to work. He was getting paid for the rest of his life. I won't get into that. That's a whole nother podcast. But so he was making money anyway. And so I was the only one that was actually making money via a job. So I had to go to work. I was like, I can't, I need to go to sleep. And he's like, no, you're not going to sleep. He buried my phone in the backyard. And I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, I need my phone. I need my phone. I have to use it as an alarm clock to get up in the morning. Wasn't letting me sleep. So I actually remember I went and I unlocked the basement door, which was in the side, like it went to the driveway. So I unlocked the door. I pretended I was running out of the house, like I was running away to get away from him, which I was actually doing that too. And then I snuck back into the basement and I slept in the basement until morning. And at about like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, I mustered the strength and I went and I got my neighbor and I was like, hey, can you help me get him out of the house? He's like, no, it's been long enough. Like, you've been put through too much. I'm not going to let you go back into that house. We're going to the police station. And I'm really grateful that they did that, because I will say, like, it was not an easy thing. I probably wouldn't have done it myself, like, because they say, like, oh, call the police, call the police. But at the end of the day, anybody that's been in that situation is always like, I'll call the police, but what kind of repercussions is this going to affect me? Like, how will this affect me if I call the police? It's only going to make them angrier. So unfortunately, a lot of people don't call the police or do anything about it because they have that fear instead. And that's kind of how people get into the circumstances that they do, where there's no coming back from, unfortunately. And so I am fortunate in the fact that I had my neighbors do that. We went to the police station. I filed a restraining order. And then that began like a fight, I'll say. It began a fight of my freedom. And it was not easy. I went to court about 8 times to try and keep that restraining order. Eventually, the court system had failed me and I wasn't able to keep it. And I didn't have any more money to go to court again. So I dropped the restraining order. I was like, I can't do this. And I'm also fortunate in the fact that my uncle was like, hey, you can move into my basement. So I moved into his basement, which I thought would have been about 3 months until I got officially divorced. It was not. I lived in there a year and a half in a windowless basement just to have my freedom. Eventually, I did get divorced. He was not giving me anything. So I was like, you know what? I need peace. I need peace in my brain. I literally gave him a house for free. He had used my money to buy himself a Camaro. I let him have the Camaro. I basically just gave everything to him. And it cost me $35,000 through this whole process of just trying to fight a restraining order and getting divorced. Gave it to him and never looked back. And I'm so grateful that I did that. It was the best decision that I could ever make. And that's when I really started prioritizing myself. And that's when I learned those hard lessons. And trust me, I know it's not easy for a lot of people. It was not easy for me. Looking back at it, I'm able to say, like, yeah, I'm glad I did it. But in it, I will say it is tough. It's definitely tough. And I still try and explain that to people as well. And until you're in it, it's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, I eventually got out and, I did go to therapy for a little bit. And I was still working. Eventually, like, all the other things caught up to me and COVID caught up to me. And so I wound up losing my job and I took a different job. So I was in the jewelry industry for about 20 years. And I was working for a really high name brand company for, I forget what it's called, but really expensive goods, luxury goods. There we go. All right. So I was working for a really big top name brand luxury good company for doing their jewelry. And I got laid off during COVID, and it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I need to get another job. I've never not been without a job. And I went to where I was previously working, the last place I work now. And he said one thing to me. He said, I can't pay you what you were making. He's like, I'm just not able to do that. It's a small mom and pop shop. He's like, but I can promise you one thing. You will be happy here. So I took a $35,000 pay cut because at the time my life was missing happiness. And I was like, I need happy. Like, I am not happy right now. I'm very depressed. I'm going through a lot. I'm trying to figure out how to learn, grow, heal, get all the things that I want, build myself back up and everything. So I took that job and I did get happy. And he was a really great boss. He still is. Like, if I go back and he needs some help, I'll still work for him from time to time. And he was also like my father figure, which was really great. And he was my landlord because he was just trying to help me out as much as he could. So it was good. And then if you fast forward to December 2022, I was driving to meet a friend and I got rear-ended in a car accident and I got a concussion. So when I got that concussion, I basically like put my life into perspective. Like, okay, you've been given this other chance and yeah, you're working, that's great, but you're not following your dreams. And so with that, I was like, okay, life's too short to keep making my boss's dreams come true. I need to make my own come true. So eventually, when I got better in September of 2023, I quit my job and I started traveling the world. So as we are recording this today, I am in beautiful Puerto Escondido, Mexico, and I have been traveling for almost 2 years now. And so that's kind of just been, I'll say, the start of it, me learning how to prioritize myself, me learning how to chase my own dreams, and people just being like, wow, you're so lucky that you can do that. Or like, wow, I wish I could do that. Well, fact of the matter is, everyone can. It's what you're not changing, you're choosing. So the people that aren't changing the situation that they're in, they're also choosing it. And so that's kind of where this all came about. I'm like, I've seen how much better life has become for me when I started living it with passion. So I want to teach other people how to live their lives with passion. And a lot of times the reason why people don't, I mean, ultimately it's because they're scared. But it also comes to other things as far as like, it may not just be that they're scared, they don't know what to do. And there may be like things running around in the background. So that's kind of how everything came about. I realized I could teach people how to do it. And so that's how I got into life coaching, is because at the end of the day, I just want people to be happy. And I would rather have more happy people than having people that are miserable and not knowing what to do, because I think life just gets better when you live it with passion.
And you are completely correct about that. It does get better when you live within your passion. And then a lot of times I get to a point where I say you live in your purpose, because if you do something that you're passionate about, your purpose will be revealed. Um, but I want to backtrack with something real quick. So when you were dating your ex-husband, did you see any signs that, because most of the time we may see a sign or two that we call them red flags now. We see
Mm-hmm.
red flags that we turn white. Did you ever see any of those flags to say, you know, maybe they were there, but you turned them white because it was convenient at the time?
Yeah, I will definitely say the love blinders got me really good, as I think they get a lot of people really good. But yeah, I mean, there were signs. Even I remember one of the first times my mom came to visit, because we wound up, like, I'm originally from New Jersey. We wound up living in Washington State. And so she came to visit. And I remember my ex and I were play fighting. And she saw him like pull me across the couch and she's like, that's not okay. I'm like, what are you talking about? We were just playing. And she's like, no, that's not okay. So she even saw it before I did. And it's just little things like that, you think could be harmless. Looking back at it, they are flags. So there was things like that. There was the biggest thing that we always had was we didn't argue too much, but when we did argue, it was always the same one fight. It was always like, hey, can you please help me clean? Because I cooked, I cleaned, I did the laundry, I did everything. He would come home, he'd take his clothes off, he'd leave them on the floor, and I was responsible for everything. And I made more money and worked more days than he did. I worked 6 days a week instead of 5 days. So for me, it was like, I just need some help. And it wasn't like a full partnership. It was more like a mother and a son, which is exactly what I didn't want to happen. Because I remember when we first met, I told him, like, listen, if you're looking for a mother, don't marry me, because I do not want to become it. And yet somehow I still did, because, that just kind of happens when you love somebody. You put up with things, you do things that you say you wouldn't do because you love them. And so, yeah, there were signs, like I think about it years ago when we were still in Washington State, there were times when I remember he had me up against a wall then too. But again, it was just like, oh, it was just like one time, it's easy to like brush it off and be like, oh, it doesn't happen a lot. And same thing with, I don't remember what I was going to say. Yeah. But
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I understand that, and that's why I wanted to ask that question because on one end, when a lot of people are going through, and it doesn't have to be domestic violence, we could just say sometimes when people go through toxic relationships, um, that they see all the negativity side after the fact. So during the
Yes.
opportunity, you know, they don't want to do the stuff if it ever gets to a domestic violence situation. We're hoping it doesn't, but when it does, they're thinking they don't want to get the other person in trouble. They love them too much. They don't want to see anything happen to them. Like, did that stuff go through your mind while you were going through that? Like, I know you wanted to get the help you needed, but was that going through your mind at that time?
I think in the beginning, no. In the end, yes. In the beginning, it's so much easier to just be like, oh, but I still really love him. But, as the flags accumulate, then you've got a fistful of flags. It's not just like one. You're like, no, I've got a lot that I'm waving right now. So it's definitely a thing that over time they accumulate. And it's also something that not everyone sees because you don't want to see it. And that was actually a conversation I was having with my friend the other day. Like, if you found out something about your ex, would you, or well, if you were still with the person at the time, would you want to know about it? Would you rather know, or would you rather stay naive to it? And I think that's a lot of times what we do is we just stay naive to it because nobody really wants to hear like, oh yeah, my husband's violent. Nobody wants to hear like my life isn't as good as I thought it was. So we just kind of, I'll say, numb ourselves to it because it's easier than facing the reality. And eventually it gets to a point where you have to face the reality. And I know that's what it happened. That was what happened to me, was like I had to face that reality. And I remember thinking too, and I thought this for years. I remember thinking like, it's so weird. It would be, we're good for a while, and then it's like clockwork. It's, well, now there was just a huge blow up and we're not good. And then we go back to good for a while, and then huge blow up, and then not good, which it took me a long time to realize that is the cycle of violence, or that is the cycle of toxicity. It's, like you're good till you're not, and then you're good till you're not. And it just keeps going. And, I've seen that now, and I'm like, I don't ever want that again to whatever capacity. I don't want violence. I don't want toxicity. So if I see it, I'm like, nope, I'm out. No red flags for me. I don't want any red flags. And that's just kind of how I live my life. I'd rather protect my peace than anything.
And you know what? That I'm glad that you got to that place that you were able to see that, that you digest that in your own strength. I know there are a lot of people, men and women. We hear a lot more women, or in Tyler Perry case, he writes more movies with women who don't really get. They get to that place, but they don't never get themselves in a different position out of that. And that's where a lot of times we see the other side of it. We see the other side where, as most women are not in that capability stage where they feel comfortable enough of leaving the situation, or they feel guilty that they're leaving the situation, or they even feel guilty that they're going to have the divorce is going to go through. For you to say, I don't want anything, I just want to have my peace. um my heart goes out to you, and seeing the other side of it for sure. And the landlord, you touched on something when you talked about him. You said he was the father figure that you didn't have. um if you don't mind me asking,
No, you're
was
fine.
your dad very vocal in your life around that time frame? Is that something that triggered towards it?
Um, no, so my parents got divorced when I was 7, and I don't fully know the reason why they got divorced. I never really asked, as far as I knew, they just got divorced and that was the end of it. Like, I was a kid, it didn't really matter. I just knew now I got 2 Christmases. And so for that, like, we didn't really have that same relationship that you would think that I would hope normal kids have. I shouldn't say normal, that's not good, because nowadays there's a lot of families that are divorced and have two homes and things like that. But anyway, yeah, so we didn't have the closest of relationships, and he, like, we're better now. He will be the first to admit, like, I wasn't really good with kids. I really didn't know how to handle them and things like that. And so it's funny because now he's a grandfather. My brother and sister both have kids, and he loves being a grandfather. But it was just one of those things where I didn't have somebody being like, "Hey, you need to date like this type of guy. Hey, these things matter when picking somebody." I didn't have that. And my mom raised me really strong, hence why I've been solo traveling for 2 years. But it was kind of like one of those things where I didn't really feel like I had missed out. I didn't feel like I really needed him in my life. And so it was just funny because when I started working at my old job, Ray, I call him Papa Ray sometimes when he switches into his father mode. Like if I was going out on dates, he'd be like, "So who is he? How old is he? Does he have a good job?" Like, and ask me all the father questions, I'll say. So that's why I say he was like a father figure, because he actually like cared about my best interest, and he didn't want to see me suffer. He knew where I was at when I first went to him and started working there. And like even now, I was just back, I think like 3 months ago, and I visited him, and I asked him how his grandkids are, and it's really great. You make those connections, and your family doesn't always have to be the family you grew up in. It can be chosen family to whichever capacity. And he was a really great boss. He still is. Like I said, I just worked there a couple months ago while I was visiting family. And it was to a point of he knew I was looking for a new place, getting out of the windowless basement that I told you I was in. So I was moving out of the windowless basement. I was looking for places, and he had places to rent. And he's like, "Well, how much were you going to be charged if you had gotten that one?" And I told him, he's like, "Okay, I'll give you mine for the same price," which was benefiting him too. But at the end of the day, he was still doing it to be nice. And I totally appreciate that. And, that's just kind of how it was. He looked out for me regardless of, as his employee, as his daughter, whatever you want to say. Like, I enjoy nice people. I do. And so that's why I want to make more people that are nice, that enjoy their lives, because it's easier to be nice when you enjoy your life. And when you don't, I think it's definitely easier to be angry. And a lot of times people don't understand that anger too.
Yeah, I want to. I'm glad you said that because I know a lot of people when they go through what you've went through, they're either angry with themselves over time because it takes a long time to forgive yourself. And I'm telling this also to myself at times. So it takes a long time for someone to forgive themselves. So around that same time frame, were you at any place where you felt like I had to forgive myself so I could move forward? Like if you don't mind, and you don't have to go fully in detail, but how did you get to a place where your healing process got started? Because I think that's the hardest thing when someone goes through what you went through is they got to think about how their healing process starts, or they're just confused. They don't know where the healing process should start at.
Yeah, I was talking to a client the other day, and I was asking him how he's feeling, and he's like, "I'm angry. I don't understand why this happened. Like, did this happen? And my whole life has just been fake, and it's this and that and that." And he's going on, which is, sorry, it sounds horrible. I'm not saying anything bad about him. But what a lot of people don't realize is you're trying to understand it. At that point of healing, you don't need to understand it. It's happened, it's done. You have to figure out how to move forward. And so that's also a great thing that my last boss has taught me as well was, okay, stop looking at the problem and look for the solution. And so many times when it comes to healing, people are just looking at the problem and they're like, "I want to be better. When am I going to be better?" And nobody's actually taking the time to be like, "Okay, this is going to take work. And the solution is this. And I have to put the time and effort into doing that." And so that's kind of where it all comes down to. It's a mindset shift that a lot of people don't want to do. And so, yeah, for me, I wound up being like, okay, I don't want to stay in this stuck place anymore. I want to get to the healing. Like, how am I going to do that? And so I figured out ways how to do it. And part of that was like, okay, what made me feel better. And for me, so everyone's different. And I will say for me, I knew I did better when I was like going to church, having more positivity in my life and things like that. So what I did was I started going back to church. I started listening to the positive books and the music with the positivity, and like learning as much as I possibly could and trying to immerse myself in a new type of normal. And that's what I did. I will also say I am Christian, and I had it where like I could read it to you on my phone, but I had it where I was hiding in a closet one day because he was not being good. So I was hiding from him. And I I would write things kind of like poetry to try and process what I was feeling. And one of the things was like, goodbye to my best friend, goodbye to my husband, goodbye to the life that I thought I had, like all of these things. And at the end of it, I was like, I know I am made for more, and I will be more. God will have me overcome it. So even in my darkest time, I still knew that I was made for more. I didn't know how or anything like that. Now it's kind of been shown to me. Now I'm like, okay, I went through all that ish for this now. So, I just kind of, it's nice how it's come around. As much as I did not enjoy going through it at the time, I also wouldn't change it because it's made me who I am, and I like who I am.
Yeah, and I mean, you overcame a lot, and you've been able to do more. You've been able to elevate a lot as well. You touched on you're a Christian. You love God. When you were going through all of that, was there at any point where you're like, I'm praying, but I don't think God's hearing me? Because I can honestly tell you, I've been there. So it's like, were you ever in that point where you're like, I'm praying about like, God, you put me in this marriage, or you told me that, marriage is what we're supposed to be doing, but he's just not a good, he's not treating me right. He's not treating me like I heard a marriage should possibly be. Were you ever in that place where you're like, God's not hearing my prayers? Like, what's up?
Not so much that, but for me, it was more like, because I remember, and I wrote it down, but I'm like, God, you say you don't give us more than we can handle. I can't handle this. Like, I feel like I can't handle this. And, as much as I wanted that pain to be taken away, then it wasn't. And I handled it. And that's also what has made me be able to do all the things that I'm doing. So, in terms of traveling the world for 2 years by myself or going on solo trips, because that's what I did before I quit my job. I was going on solo holidays, vacations, because I made a promise with myself that I wasn't going to let somebody stop me again. If I wanted to do something, I was going to do it. So, that's just a promise that I've taken seriously for myself. So, yeah, I started doing it. And, the more you put yourself in those situations, the more you're able to see, like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'm pretty awesome. I was able to do this. Well, if I can do this, I can do that. And it just slowly grows your confidence. It grows your resiliency. And again, that's something that I want to teach because people don't understand and they just see it as the obstacle and they don't know how to overcome it. And the way to overcome it is going through it.
Wow. Well, I mean, you definitely have went through. You've had an opportunity to see where God's going to continue to bless you. That's for sure. Because you know what you were not seeing in the, even though it didn't feel like a blessing, but God was teaching you something in the blessing that you were able to get. The
Yeah.
test back then, I feel for you, where I can't give up. He's putting me somewhere where I know I can't give up, and then He's going to elevate you in a place where pushing you in a position where giving up is not the option, because He's
Yes.
not giving up on you as a person. Now, going through all that, you didn't have to start a business. So how did you make a decision to start a business? Because if you're like me, if I could think two ways to make money out of something, I done thought about making a business out of it. So how did you make a decision to say, I'm going to want to help other people, but I may make a business out of this? I may become an entrepreneur out of this.
So I have always liked helping people. My mom has always liked helping people. That was something that was very ingrained in us when we were younger. It was like, no, be a good person, help people, be nice, all those things. So for me, it was not something that I was like, yeah, I'm now going to make money off of people. That was never my intention and is not my intention still. But it was more so one of those things where I want to do everything that feels aligned for me. So if something feels off or fake, I don't do it. So when I quit my job, I quit with the idea that I was going to have my own travel business. And technically, I started my own travel business. However, it didn't really resonate with me because I'm I'm a budget traveler. I'm living in places where it could be $10 a day. I don't care. But so for me to spend $10 a day, but sell somebody a $3,000 package for a week just didn't feel right to me because that's not who I am. And, how can I say, oh yeah, I'm going on all these places for like $600 and you're going for 3,000? That didn't sit right. So when I left the US, I left with one goal, and my goal was make it to Chiang Mai, Thailand, and get certified to teach English so I can be TEFL certified and teach English in whatever country I go to in case I run out of money. And so that's what I did. I went to Thailand. I taught English for I think a year and a half. I just recently stopped it when I got to Mexico. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, but I still want to help people. How do I do this? And I would see all these people that are going through the same things that I was going through, and I would speak to them, and they're like, wow, you're really good at this. And I'm like, yeah, I've been through a lot of stuff. I can talk about a lot of stuff. And I'm not talking about it with judgment. Like, I understand. I understand what it's like to go through that. I understand what it's like to get out of it, all of it. And so it was just one of those things where it kind of just felt like, now I see why you gave me all these troubles. I had all these troubles because you put it in me that I'm going to help people. So it is kind of a newer thing that I just realized like maybe a year and a half ago. I don't know, but it was something that it was never my intentions to do. It just kind of happened, and I'm okay with that being my answer, and I just feel like it was put in me for a reason, and I have to do it because of that, because it was given to me, so I have to honor it.
I mean, well, you're doing an awesome job. I mean, to be able to travel the way you're traveling, to help as many people as you're helping. Um, I mean, I can tell you right now, if I want to travel to go to Mexico, I got to like literally plan for like 2 years right now in my mind. So for you to make it to where you've been in Mexico now for this amount of time, and you're helping people there, um, that shows a lot of volume of how how you've been blessed. So what is like the next steps? Well, let me back up for a second. So what are the steps that you would like to take to give any advice of anyone who's going through a domestic violence situation? Because first and foremost, we all know that you can make it through. Like
Yes.
we all know that. But there are someone who might be, listening to this later or deciding to listen to this later on tonight, and it's at midnight and there's not one person they can think they can pick up the phone or whatnot. So what advice do you have to them? Man, woman, it doesn't matter. What advice do you have to them? Because at the end of the day, they're gotta make a mindset of this is not not normal, and not feel embarrassed about it, because I think at the end of the day that's the number one thing they feel embarrassed about
Mhm.
the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a lot of advice, but the one thing that you just touched on was, yeah, at the end of the day, like, who cares? People are going to have their opinion of you. And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Like, anyone is going to have an opinion. It's just human nature. We all have opinions about things. And a lot of times we get stuck in that fear, like, oh, what will someone think? What does it mean if I'm ending a marriage? Well, at the end of the day, like, you are the only one that needs to be responsible for you, that is responsible for you. And possibly if you have kids, you're responsible for your kids too. But you are the only one responsible for you. So you have to make the best decision for you. And if people don't understand it, it doesn't matter, because if they want to worry about not understanding your problem, that's okay. But you don't need to worry about them worrying about you and not understanding your problem. Like, there's too many things to worry about. And at the end of the day, so many people are self-serving. They're gonna be like, oh, she's got that problem, and now we're gonna talk about her. But then we're also gonna go talk about this person. So you're gonna be like a thought. It's not gonna be anything else. So all you have to do is be brave for like 8 seconds. You can be brave and be like, hey, I'm ending it, hey, I'm walking out, hey, I'm filing for divorce, whatever it may be, you don't have to be brave for that long to take a step. You will have to be brave in the step, yes, but to take the step, it just has to be a decision. It has to be a choice. And it doesn't matter what that choice is, hopefully a choice for the better, but it it doesn't matter. The choice is for you and you get to choose for your life, not someone else choosing for your life because you are the only one that's going to live it.
Now, let me ask this question. I mean, you guys didn't have kids, but what about the one man or woman who may have children and they're only saying they're staying because of there's kids in the atmosphere,
You
even
know,
though
I just had
even though
this
they should stay.
conversation the other day. Um, you know, you want to be the best version of yourself for your kids because if you are staying so your kids can see like a father and a mother together, well, if you guys are constantly fighting, you're setting that example as fighting, like fighting parents, fighting adults, whatever it may be. And then that can become the child's normal. They're like, oh, well, couples are supposed to fight, so it's fine. And it's almost like you don't even give them the fair shot to see what it's like to have that peace in their life. So if you can't think of it as I'm doing it for myself, think of it as I'm doing it so my kids can have a good role model, whatever that may be. Like it may be that you're a better role model for them. It may have nothing to do with the significant other. It may be you're a better role model for them without your significant other because you can now be the best version of yourself. Whereas if you're staying in it and you're depressed and you guys are constantly fighting, well, you're teaching your child that depression is okay, which it is okay. Don't get me wrong. Depression is okay. People go through it. I know I went through it. But you are teaching that there's not something else. Like there is depression, but there's also the other side of depression where you get out of it. And I personally would rather teach my child that it's okay to not stay in that, to seek out help and to be able to be your biggest advocate. And that's what you're doing when you are your own advocate. You're teaching your child to be an advocate for themselves.
Wow. Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, I can honestly come and say for those individuals, um, if there's some toxicity, that's a big word for the day, going on, then you definitely don't want that energy around your children. You don't want that around your dogs or cats or fish or birds. You
I
know, you
don't
don't
want
want
it
that
around
energy
me
around
either.
that. Yeah, you don't want that around them. But I will also say you want to be the best version for yourself, so you can project that out for other people, and that way, there are sometimes people know. And I want to plug this in for those who are listening. People can sense when things are not right. They may not know
Mhm.
why it's not right, but they can sense why it's not right. You know what I'm saying? They can know so and so has an issue with something. That something
Yeah.
they may not know with 100% of. Um, and it's
And that was
okay.
something that my family told me when I left. They were like, we always thought something was a little off. For me, I didn't know that they knew that. And like, I didn't even know that it was off. I just thought that was normal of how life was. But no, people could tell.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest thing. Like we have to see that. I was gonna
Yeah.
say. So I mean, it's really on that mindset that like again, I can honestly say, Christina, I'm so glad that you were able to make it to the other side for sure. Now, before we get ready to wrap up, is there any kind of way for any individual can get with you um, to get some good life coaching? Because I believe I said it earlier. I think you can go get your life coaching therapy, and you can pray, and there's some combining to do with that and you're gonna see your way through. You can't sit there and say that prayer and therapy don't go hand in hand because I'm a firm believer and a witness that I can do both and I'm a still sore and I might have some medication to go along the way. I mean it is what it is. I mean
It
and
is
I
what
ain't
it
gonna sit
is.
there and be looked down upon myself either.
Yeah. So yes, they can find me a lot of different ways. So we'll start with on Instagram. You can find me at Confidence Coach Christina. You can find me at my website, confidencecoachchristina.com. You can also find me by going to Facebook for my name. It's Christina Bolkovich, which I know is a mouthful and it's hard to say. Same thing with LinkedIn, Christina Bolkovich. And yeah, I'm on TikTok as well. That I haven't changed back yet. That is still Happy Mindset Travel Girl because I am traveling, I am happy, and I talk about mindset. So those are the ways. But yeah, and if you want to learn more about my program is called Reflect to Rise because I understand that there are a lot of things that run in the background of our brains that we may not even know about. And so those are usually patterns. I also did a workshop recently called Patterns to Power, where we unpacked all the patterns, not all of them, there's so many. We unpacked a lot of patterns that are the typicals that run in people's brains and how to overcome them. So going back to my Reflect to Rise program helps you look at the past, figure out what's still running in your background, how to overcome all of that, start reclaiming. So I have reflecting, reclaiming, and rising. Reclaiming is where you start to see, okay, this is what's going on. This is how I need to make it better. And then the rising phase is where you actually start implementing all the things that you want in your life and you start reaching those goals that you really want.
I mean, you know, Christina, I can only say 100%. I so much am glad that we got to meet one another. That's number one. Um, and that you were able to tell your story. Um, Not just so more people got more clarity, but to show that there's a way out, that there's a
Yes.
way that you can move forward, that there's a way that you can move in directions. And I don't know how many Bible scholars out there, but you can have some mountains moved. You just
Yes.
got to be able to say, I am ready. I don't see anything from a mindset that does not see the strength that is given to me because it's given to all of us. We just
Yeah.
have to learn how to tap into it. I mean, let's just be 100 with it. We have to learn how to tap into it. Um, because when you learn how to tap into it, man, it's some beautiful things. I mean, I'm gonna end the show with this. So Isaiah 41:10, and I'm not gonna paraphrase, but I'm gonna give y'all something to motivate y'all. Y'all know I do motivations every single show. But the one thing that I definitely want to come and say, you cannot have fear in movement. You have to have the opportunity that God gives you the strength to move forward. So no matter what that moment is for you, He give you the strength to move forward. So if you're in that type of relationship, you can even be in a business relationship. It's toxic. You can move forward. If you are in any other situation, you can still move forward. The one thing that you have to do is know where your strength comes from and acknowledge it, rely on it, and move forward in it. Because the more you do, the better, the more you acknowledge where that strength comes from, the better off you're going to be. I promise you. Um,
Yes.
Christina is a living witness. She literally told you guys her testimony. Her test that she went through gave her the biggest testimony. And now she is in her purpose because her pain created her purpose.
Yes. And building on what you just said too, one of my favorite quotes is fear and faith are manifested the same way.
You're right. Actually, I do
So,
have on my clothing line. I have a faith over fear shirt on part of our line. Um,
mhm.
um, I should have wore it today, but it happens. But yeah, I mean, guys, I definitely, definitely, definitely want you guys to know that you can move forward. God gives you the strength. You just have to keep moving forward in the possibility, and whatever you do, it is definitely done for you. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I love you. I want you guys to continue to tell your family and friends about No Test Without Testimony with your boy T. Wright. We're always on YouTube. We're gonna be on other various platforms, obviously as well. So, you want something positive to keep you going 45 minutes to an hour on a weekly basis. I ain't gonna sit here and tell you I'm your number one guy, but I sure do want to fall in the number. So that way we can definitely keep it going each and every single week. Um, Christina, I love you so much. I thank God for you. Wherever you land in your next trip, please do me one favor. Be safe.
Mhm. I'm always safe.
And I know you're going to always stay prayed up. So I ain't even going to ask that question. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Well, peace out. Have a good one. And I holler back.
Bye.